Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of the FPL show on Gallagher Shots YouTube channel. I'm your host Matt, back again to give you your scoop of FPL show knowledge stuff. So it's been a bit of a crazy game week 5. It was a really topsy-turvy one where I somehow went from 300,000 live overall rank to like 150k. Um, Purely because of an Antonio Rudiger goal. That kind of 13-point swing or whatever it was halved my rank. I was about to have an absolute nightmare. I had Backman who was not playing, so I had 10 players. And a lot of people had a bit of a stinker. Now, I've got a big problem with Backman, but I'm going to come on to that later. Game week 5 was really kind of sorted the men from the boys, and I think what's going to happen is you're probably going to have a lot of players now deciding to give up. This was the sort of game week where it's going to see who's resilient and who isn't. Um, and I think if you do stick with it, it's going to reap some rewards, because if you're going to be somebody who's actively playing the game still, I think there are going to be a fair few dead teams in the next couple of weeks, and you might make some good ground. So anyway, let's have a little look at the Gallagher Shots League. We have a new leader. It's Tom Wiggum. Now, he scored 79 this week, which is a brilliant score. Took him to 403 points overall. And he's only got a lead by 2 points. Now, I'm sure a couple of weeks ago there was about a 14-point lead. And it shows how quickly things can change. So again, if you're somebody who's thinking about giving up, not bothered about the team anymore, had a bad game week, it literally can flip on its head straight away. Now, that 2 point gap is crazy. Now, Matt Smith is in second place. Now, he's been in and around that top 2 or 3 since the beginning. Not that I'm spying on you, Matt. I think his team's called Elastic or Chop, if you want to check that out. And yeah, he's definitely still in the hunt, and I'm really, really kind of eager to see how that plays out. Anthonini, I think, dropped to fourth. Had a really, really bad week, 50 odd points, I think. So it'd be interesting to see if he can pick himself back up again. And yeah, I'm going to just really shout out Neil Rundell, who captained St. Maximin, which is, again, a brilliant, brilliant points haul from, I think it was 16 points. For his goal against Leeds, he was an absolute nightmare for that Leeds defence. And yeah, I mean, without him, we're lost, aren't we, really? And manager of the week. My manager of the week is Josh Hall with 87 points, which was insane. For this week, of all weeks, to get 87 points was massive. He's had a lot of luck off his bench by the looks of things. I can't say for sure who he had starting, but he had Livramento, I think Joe Linton, and somebody else for 5 points each coming in. So he's got 15 points off his bench. Torres, Antonio, and Trent were the players who missed out for him. So it's very rare in FPL that you have 3 players missing, and those auto subs give you 15 points. So he's done massively well there. He's went from 137th, I think, in the league to about 71st. So again, not that I'm trying to kind of keep people going, but he's it shows how quickly things can change. One good game week can almost half your rank at this stage in the minute. So I personally, I'm sitting pretty at 15th, and I thought, oh, I'm just right in the hunt for first. But actually, when I did a little bit of looking, the difference between 11th and 54th is 20 points. So it's so close in this league. It's going to be really entertaining to see how it plays out. I also learned that I'm closer to 54th than what I am to first. I think the gap between first is like 24 points and me, whereas it's 20 between 11th and 54th. So yeah, it doesn't feel too good. It makes me a bit stressed about thinking how quickly I could drop down our league. But yeah, I can't think about that. Got to keep focused. So yeah, that's the league, guys. Again, I'll be keeping a close eye on this week to see how game week 6 plays out. There was loads of wild cards played, and I can see that kind of slowly creeping up from game week 6 to 8, especially with those trying to jump on Lukaku for game week 7 and 8, because he's going to be the most captain player, I think. And it'll be interesting to see if people keep Ronaldo. I'm already stressing about that. I'm a Ronaldo owner myself, and it's really, I'm stressing thinking about whether I'm going to keep Ronaldo And if I am, how am I going to find that money to get one of my strikers to Lukaku and have that Ronaldo Lukaku double up? So yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about that in a bit. So my big talking point this week is whether we should be looking at getting some premium defenders in and just trying to put our money in our defence, because it's really interesting. I mean, it's only 5 game weeks. It's a very small data spread, but it's really interesting to see the amount of clean sheets and how easy it's been to predict those clean sheets for the top teams. Whereas normally it's been very, very tricky to predict clean sheets, especially when we had COVID season, when there was no fans in stadiums. That home advantage has really kind of reared its head again. And I think it's something that we can really play to our advantage. It's almost looking like we can predict clean sheets better than attacking goals or assists. And that could really play into our hands as FPL managers. So, for example, then these are my thoughts at the minute. So the top 3 defence at the minute in the league is Chelsea, Liverpool, and Man City. Okay, and they've only conceded 1 goal each in the first 5 game weeks, so that's 3 total, right? Last season, those same teams in the first 5 game weeks conceded 29 goals. So it shows how things have just totally flipped. And I mean, Liverpool arguably had missed Van Dijk for those. I think it was game week 3, Van Dijk got injured last season. So there's a slight caveat there. But in terms of those top 3 teams, it looks like this season they can be really relied on for those clean sheets, whereas in the past they couldn't. So for example, again last season, the top defenders by this point were the likes of Romain Saiss of Wolves, Tyrone Mings, Castagne of Leicester, Cresswell, Konsa, kind of really, really like inconspicuous, kind of not really that popular players who, unless you were really following FPL closely, you wouldn't really have been picking. So whereas this season, it's your Cancelos, Diaz's, Trent's. So it's really interesting to see how we could maybe predict those clean sheets. Now, personally, I'm considering putting the money into my midfield. I would rather have 6 million invested in potentially Edison than having 6 million invested in a Sarr or a Gallagher of Crystal Palace or Ben Rama, because I feel like with Edison, he's going to slowly tick by with his 6 pointers. Whereas Ben Rama, I think, because he plays for a worse team, and obviously Sarr as well, playing for a worse team, it's going to be hard to kind of pick where those 6 to 12 pointers are going to come from. Whereas I feel like Edison's, your Diaz's, Rudiger's are going to just tick along and get those 6 pointers each week. I mean, you'd argue for Chelsea, the only really difficult team they've got is Man City and a Liverpool. I think at home, they would fancy themselves with a clean sheet forever against anyone, which is why I'm playing Rudiger against Man City this week. So yeah, I think it's going to be a season of playing a strong defence, and I'm thinking in the long term of having a back 5 constantly throughout the season of something that looks something like Rudiger, Cancelo, Alonso, Livramento will be the kind of enabler because he's absolutely class for Southampton. 4 million, I think it might be 4.2 now actually. And someone along the lines of, I don't know, Shaw or a Trent, and obviously Trent as well. Trent's always going to be in my team now regardless. And then obviously from there it'll leave me not a lot of money in midfield, and I'll probably be playing a 5-2-3 or a 5-3-2 and having Salah as a constant, and then having maybe 2 mid-price or kind of 5.5 to 7 million mids in there. And then that would leave me the money to have potentially a 3 or a 2 up top of Ronaldo or Lukaku, Armstrong and Antonio or such like. Because I think those strikers, again, looking at the home fixtures, it's been quite easy to predict when those strikers are going to get the points. I think midfielders, it's been too sporadic. I think Torres and all those sort of midfielders, they've done it, but not consistently enough. They're having more like big bursts of points, whereas the likes of your Armstrongs and things like that, I think are just going to potentially tick along, get those odd 6 pointers. So yeah, I mean, I have just had a little play around and just to have a little look, see if I could make a team that was decent enough and kind of well balanced enough with like a 5-2-3 or a 5-3-2, and I made one with Ederson in goal. Then you have a back five of Trent, Livramento, Alonso, Rudiger, and I think that's Cancelo. Then Salah and Torres as a midfield two, and then you could have Ronaldo, Antonio, and Adam Armstrong. And I feel like that would be quite set, especially for the next few weeks. And then there's always the option of kind of switching Ronaldo to Lukaku in game week 8. So if you're on a wild card, if I was there, that would be the team that I would be getting. You'd argue that having a two in midfield wouldn't be flexible enough if those midfield players start to really bang. But I mean, at the minute, like I've just said, the consistency's in defence. And if you can get those 6-pointers, you're going to be doing well. So yeah, and I mean, there's always the thoughts of a 5-3-2. You could always drop Ederson to Gaeta from Crystal Palace and then get James in to save some money instead of Alonso, and then Sarr instead of Torres. And then that would be able to get some money in to get, say, for example, Antonio up to a Lukaku. So yeah, you can see where mine's at the minute. It's the next 2 weeks. My team looks a bit of a mess. I've got Bamford, who's been ruled out. I've just had to take a -4 to bring Antonio back in because I had DCL sat there stinking out my bench. And obviously, I think Antonio's going to run riot against Leeds, who are riddled with injuries. And I've also got Backman, who didn't show up last week, and it looks like he's going to miss out again against us. So, yeah, I've got to think of getting a goalkeeper in, and I hate making goalkeeper transfers. So yeah, that brings me nicely onto my kind of transfer thoughts. It's going to be my first hit of the season. Normally, I would have taken loads by now. I normally take quite a lot of hits, and it doesn't help me at all. I kind of damage myself a little bit with those. But first hit of the season, hoping it's not going to be a continuous kind of issue. Going to bring in Gaeta from Crystal Palace. I think in the next 5 game weeks, he's got a fairly decent chance of a couple of clean sheets. For 4.5 as well, you can't really complain. Then, so Backman's gone. Sadly, I mean, he was terrible anyway. Watford have been dreadful in defence. I fancy us to score at least against them. Then I'm bringing back Antonio, like I've just said. I think he's going to potentially a good captaincy option this week if you don't have Ronaldo and you don't fancy Salah against a half-decent Brentford defence. So that's my thoughts anyway. I've got concerns long-term of Jota. Now, I know I've had some people tweet to me about Jota and whether I'm going to sell him or not, or when I'm going to do it. There's already been talk of Firmino being training, but it's mostly been individual training. So that kind of makes me think that it's going to be at least another couple of weeks. The Man City fixture at home, though, doesn't really fill me with hope after in game week 7. So there's thoughts in my mind already that I might be trying to offload Jota and get someone around about that 5.56 million mark to try and get a bit of cash to see if I can get Lukaku in game week 8 without replacing Ronaldo with him, because I don't want to lose Ronaldo at the minute. So yeah, that's pretty much me. That's my thoughts. That's my FPL thoughts from this week, just unloaded onto a video for you. Make of that nonsense what you will. I would be looking at getting money in defence. And yeah, before I leave you, I'm going to leave you with some optimistic stats for Newcastle. I'm going to try and do this every week, again, just to try and kind of lighten the mood a bit, show how fun it is supporting Newcastle, as we all know. So yeah, you all know that I love a good stat. You know I like XG and things like that. So attacking wise, we are doing really well. We're around mid-table for a lot of those attacking stats like XG and XA. And I think that's down, and we're actually taking a high volume of shots in the box per game. I think we're like 7th or 8th in the league, whereas normally last 3 or 4 seasons we've been near the bottom. So this season it's looking good attacking wise, so that's something to be positive about. But defensively, I'm worried about us. We're bottom for expected goals conceded. We're bottom for expected clean sheets. We're 19th for attempts on target conceded. So that means that obviously the amount of shots that we're having against us that are on target is insane. So that either means we're not blocking them enough, or we're just giving away high quality chances every game that are easy to get on target. We're 20th for shots conceded in total, so we're getting peppered. Whoever's in goal for us is going to be busy. And obviously, if we're going to stay up, that can't continue. We're scoring goals, but we're also leaking them like mad at the back end. It reminds me of Norwich a few seasons ago when they looked good going forward, but they just kind of got pummeled at the back. And that's where my head's at with us at the minute. Saint Maximin looks like a really, really good option. He's if you look on any lots of fancy Premier League YouTube videos, you might see his name popping up, and it's very rare for Newcastle United players to pop up on those sort of things because we're not a very attacking team. We're not very well thought of, sadly, in bigger football terms. So it's nice to be able to see Saint Maximin being actually well thought of, and it looks like he's found an end product and he's relishing the role of being the main man. So yeah, if I was going to bring in somebody potentially next week, I've mentioned Adam Armstrong. But if I was thinking of getting a replacement for Bamford, I would possibly be looking at St. Maximin as well. Because from game week 8 until game week 16, I mentioned this last week, our fixtures are insanely good. We need to pick up points in those fixtures if we're going to stand any chance. And I can see us going on a bit of a run. It's just all dependent on what Steve Bruce does, whether the rumours about him being trying to get paid off and all that are true. But obviously it's Newcastle United Twitter cuckoo land, isn't it? So people in the know, people not in the know, people just think they know, whatever it is. I can kind of see Steve Bruce being around for the long term. So on that positive note, I'm going to sign off and hope you guys have a good game week. Not too good. I want to be able to still beat you. I want to be able to keep doing these videos and saying how good I'm doing. I've not had a red arrow yet. Touch wood that keeps going. All green so far, up to 150k in the world. Let's try and push into that top 100k. So yeah, have a good game week, guys. Ta-ra.